Moment when you're not sure if you're live on Facebook, etc. But Paul Ace from Amplify-C, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on live with us today. Interesting topics we have ahead of us.
Great to be on the show, Michael.
Yeah, you too. And for anyone listening live or on the replay, I know a lot of people listen on the replay these days, actually. Please do pop any comments or questions for Paul or myself in, and we'll happily get to them. We probably won't get to them during the live itself because we're going to live record a podcast, as is our tradition on the show. But we will definitely circle back round if you've got any questions. I personally always want to drill people with questions if I can who are experts in an area, and today we're going to be talking about conversational copy, which is an interesting sort of angle on the whole copywriting thing. I was reading a web page just yesterday written by a copywriter, so it's biased, but it was saying basically copywriting is a very evergreen skill, and it's true. I mean, Amazon might change its mind about how it feels about third-party sellers, Facebook may stop your ads, but copywriting ain't going out of fashion anytime in the next 100 years, I think. So it's a really perennial topic, really evergreen, so delighted to be talking about that. So Paul, are you ready to plunge in and record our podcast?
100%. Let's go for it.
Let's do this. Here we go then. Right, camera back to me, please. Zoom. Here we go. Ladles and jelly spoon boys and girls, welcome back to the 10K Collective podcast, the place to be for 6, 7 and 8 figure Amazon private label sellers, a subset of the amazing FBA family of podcasts. Today we are welcoming Paul Ace of Amplify-C, and we're going to be talking about how to amplify your business using conversational copy. Cool topic. Paul and his team help 7-figure online sellers generate an extra 6 to 7 figures in extra revenue in 90 days. So it's amplifyc.com, I think is the name of the business, Paul. So
Amplify-C.com, yeah.
Amplify-C.com. Sorry, I get it right. Amplify-C.com. You got a fun name to play with there on every single podcast, haven't you, Paul? Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Excited to dive in.
Excellent. So, why don't we start with this? This is an interesting question. Conversational copy. First of all, what is that, and why are you called C-com? What is that all about?
Yeah, so C-com stands for conversational commerce, right? So, and I can't take credit for coining the term conversational commerce, but if you look back to the early 2000s, right, and remember when it was like the whole ecom boom, and everyone was like, hey, there's this thing called the internet, and you can sell stuff on it. And at that point, people are like, oh yeah, this ecom thing, I don't think it'll really take off. If you look in the last 12, 18 months, even last 5 years, you can just see this like rise of it. And now this is like the next wave of ecom is C-com, right? Which is all about that conversational experience, because what's changed in the last 15, 20 years, people want instant gratification and personalized service. So we look how we can create both through conversational commerce, and it's also the way that we write, because now people like feel like they want that personalized service, right? But if you're writing copy to a mass market, you can't give a personalized response to every single person. So you write in such a way that feels like you're having a conversation, rather than feeling like you're just trying to sell stuff at someone, and taking away a little bit of that like overhype, right? So you just see all these kind of like, and some of that overhype works in some respect, and it might quite often as well get you the first sale, but will it get you the next sale and the next sale and the next sale? So one of the big things that we focus on is something called LTV, which is lifetime customer value. So it's not just about, hey, what advertising or marketing or copy did you put out there to make the first sale, but what did you do to bring them on in a way where they were like, do you know what, I felt good about buying that product. I didn't feel like coerced into it, and I actually got what I paid for. And then I want to go and buy more things from you because I know you, like you, and trust you.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's again those psychological know, like, trust thing. Whoever coined that first, I guess it's been made famous by people like Jay Abrahams and Dan Kennedy, people like that, right? And that's never going out of fashion either. So I like the evergreen nature of this. So I guess one of the reasons, let's plunge into this particular problem. One of the reasons that Amazon sellers get obsessed about the first sale is because it's often the last sale, isn't it, if you're selling on the Amazon space? So I don't know how much of your clients are focused solely on that space, but how do you suggest we even begin to think about having a lifetime customer value when it's Amazon's customer? This is one of the starting point problems I'd like to solve.
Yeah, 100%. So, obviously you've got a benefit if you're in a recurring product model, right? If anything that's a consumable that people can buy over and over again, which is fantastic. And at the other part, it's about the customer experience. So if you've got ways and means of adding extra value through the whole buying journey, yes, obviously Amazon's got control of some of the fulfillment process and stuff like that. But if you can potentially include some things in as a free gift and things like that guides people to go and repeat purchase from you again and again and again, then basically really in a modern e-com society and in a modern world right now, it's not that hard to be better. Quite often you just need to be different. So it's about going, okay, let's look at firstly that first sale. What else would people need at that point, right? So if I'm going to go and sell a physical product, what kind of digital product could I put as a free bonus with it, or something like that maybe I can have like a little postcard that goes with the product that goes out and it says, hey, here's your free digital download of this as well. Like, how can I make the use of the product as easy as possible? So then people naturally want to refer other people to that thing, right? And they go, hey, I got this thing. Hey, check out how easy it is to use. So, for example, not quite so much the Amazon space, but I used to have my own e-com store, and we sold bridesmaids dresses. And one of the things that we found with the bridesmaids dresses is they were these multi-way dresses, right? So they had like 18 different ways you could wear them. And people didn't know all the ways you could wear them. So we created this ways to wear guide where basically I took a photo of my wife in every single style, and then we took photos at each stage of the journey and turned it into this like 40 page ways to wear guide. So when they got to the wedding day, they were like, oh wow, look at all the different ways we can wear it. And then they all started talking about it more and more because you created this factor where people could share something. So when you're creating a shareability factor with the product as well, that can really help. Now, the second part of that is like the way that you write the copy, right? Are you helping people resonate with you and resonate with the story of the business? And you don't want to go into like massive detail in that, right? Because you've only got a very short amount of real estate on Amazon to hit that part. One of our clients like teaches people how to sell on Amazon. And I know one of the biggest things that they talk about is the photographs, right? You've got to make sure you got professional photographs all the time. Otherwise, people are not even going to click to the listing and see the copy. So once you get to that page and you've got those great photographs, they stand out from everyone else's, you know, you've got all your technical side with all your keywords and everything like that. Once they get to the page, it's also then about like, are you telling the story? Are you bringing people closer to you or further away? Do they resonate with you, or do they kind of get switched off and just like look at it as a commodity product? So when it's talking about conversational copy, some of the things, you know, as we're going through, whether we're creating the product listing or we're putting a little bit of description of, about the company or whatever that thing is, we write it in such a way, you may have thought this. You might have thought this, right? So, for example, Michael, if I said to you, whatever you do, I don't want you to think about a pink elephant on roller skates right now.
Sure, that
right?
old one, yeah.
First thing you do is thinking a pink elephant on roller skates, right? It's using embedded commands in the copy. So one of the ways, like, for example, if you're doing that in, maybe you found yourself with this problem. And if you have, you've probably found this being a problem as well, right? When you're in the main body copy. So then they start thinking about those problems rather than just saying it solves this in terms of just giving the feature, right? So you've got, and I learned this from Todd Brown, is you've got benefit, right? Emotional benefit, dimensional benefit. So you've got the overall like feature benefit. So it's just like it does this thing, which does this, right? And then you've got the emotional benefit. How is that different for your life? And then you've got the dimensional benefit in terms of imagine yourself using that now. How would that be different?
Okay,
right?
So dimensional benefit, that sounds like typical sort of American marketing speak to be able to sell somebody a course. So it sounds like to me future pacing in NLP terms, if you're using the word embedded command. So we sound like we're in the world of NLP, which I used to work for somebody for a while doing some sales for them in that world. So I've got some tangential knowledge of that. So just embedded commands, we've sort of mentioned that, don't think about a pink elephant, all that stuff. Tell me, let's just define what those are for those who haven't come across that and why they matter so much, because I think that's going to be a key thing that people often miss.
So in terms of what embedded commands are, that they're using certain words or certain phrases that really start to get people thinking about the thing that you want them to think about, right? So, like, if you look at the word command, that's to get someone to command someone to do something, right? And the word embed is like to push within. So the word embedded command together, that's using words and phrases in such a way that guides people to think about what you want them to think about. So, for example, don't think about a pink elephant on roller skates. That situation is getting you to now think about that because I've used the word think in there.
Could you give us a marketing example from preferably an e-commerce one?
Yeah, so if you... I'll take the example of like bridesmaids dresses, right? So maybe right now you've been thinking, how am I going to find a bridesmaid's dress that works for everyone? Right? So then you're planting that thought in the head that they probably already got at the back of the mind anyway, but you're bringing it to the forefront. So you may have been thinking, how am I going to find a bridesmaid's dress that fits everyone? How am I going to find... I've got so many bridesmaids right now, and there's always one that doesn't like the thing that the others like, right? And then adding things like right at the end when you make a statement that they would naturally agree with, then you put in right at the end of it as a question. Then naturally, then you get this yes momentum and getting people nodding their head, right?
So putting in tag questions, it's a classic salesman thing. So, Paul, you'll find that talking to podcast hosts is quite annoying when they interrupt you, right? Or isn't it, or doesn't it, and all that stuff. Yeah, I get that one. By the way, so the idea of entering the conversation in the prospect's head is in another old copywriting one, which seems to be what you're referring to, that you were saying something's at the back of their mind, but you're bringing it to the fore of their mind, which is a nice way of thinking of embedded commands. It's not kind of going in a random direction. It's kind of getting what's there and pulling it out. Is that more or less it?
Yeah, and also, just sometimes the language patterns that you're using as you're going through the copy, it's not always writing grammatically correct. Okay, so for example, we've used things more in the course space and things like that, but also you can potentially use some of these phrasings. So for example, just like, how would you speak normally? If you're speaking to someone in a conversation, how would you write then? And then write in a similar way with some of the copy that you're writing that naturally links with how they would like, this person seems like they get it, right? Rather than it coming from this corporate perspective, we've been in business since 1974 and all those kind of things, right? It's just like meeting people where they're at, because this world of social media that we're in right now, people want to be social. And yes, they want to see you as a professional company in terms of, am I going to get a good quality product? And if they feel like they resonate with you, then they're naturally going to buy from you over and over again.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, I banned some of my clients, if I consult on some of the copy for their listings, sometimes from using the word durable, because nobody ever says that word. They say it lasts a long time, or some words like that. Words of one syllable often are quite powerful, I think. So, yeah, I totally get that. And yeah, people fall into that trap. I think they fall into the trap, don't they, of thinking, I need to look professional, i.e., to get trust, that people think we're a serious company. And they talk in corporate speak, as opposed to having really super quality photos, which give the impression of quality without you saying a word, right? I think that's often the key. So there's quite a smorgasbord of questions that we've got to choose from here. I'm just sort of rubbing my hands into keying. This is exciting stuff. Well, let's talk about how we actually go about this now. So we've got the basic principles, we've got some ideas of embedded commands, a few examples. What's the sort of, is there a sort of step-by-step process or a sort of way of doing it that's standard, or is every case kind of unique?
Yeah, so something, obviously, you don't own a list when you're on Amazon. Okay, so you haven't really got that ability to survey your audience in the same way. However, there's people in your market that do have that list. And there's people in your market that you can potentially collaborate with. Now, one of the things that we do in order, and you said before about the word durable, right? If no one's using the word durable, why would we use it in the copy? So one of the things that we look at is don't try and reinvent the wheel when you're writing what you want to write. Use the words that are already out there that people are using right now. So the first thing that you can potentially do is, if you've got someone you can collaborate with, maybe it's a competition or whatever like that, or maybe it's just like, hey, you've already got a network of people that you could send a survey out to. Okay, you take those survey results once you've got the answers to that, analyze that data, and actually then look at the language patterns that all your customers are using. So if it's like, hey, what's the biggest thing that you're struggling with regarding to whatever your product solves, right? And then you might be saying, so let me give you the example. If you've ever let's say your broadband's gone down, right? And you ring up your telephone provider and you're just like, hey, I'm so frustrated. I've been waiting for this for days and it's still not working. Then I know you're really angry, Michael. I know you're really angry. And you're like, no, I'm not angry. I'm just frustrated, right? Because they didn't use your language patterns. So we've got to create that level of understanding there. And the second way of doing that, especially for Amazon, is going through all the reviews of yours and your competitors, right? And then picking out those language patterns, having that, putting it all in a Google sheet, just like, go and hire a VA or go and do it yourself if you're just getting started, and go through all those Amazon reviews, copy and paste them all, bam, 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 put them all into a Google sheet, and then look for the patterns. What are people saying over and over again? What are the people saying they love? What are people saying they hate? Okay, and then what can you improve upon in the way that you put your messaging out there, or maybe how you can improve your own product, right? How can you make those improvements? And this is really helpful at scale with your own product, because you can see what people love about your product and then focus on that in your descriptions. And at the same time, if you're just getting started, focus on what the people say they love about your competitor stuff and talk about that stuff. And then the stuff that they say they hate, talk about how it isn't anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like this, because one of the things that strikes me is that people obsess about images, and they think quite rightly, and by the way, most people don't do this, to be fair. The really good brands have a look and feel, they have a palette, and if you're really, really lucky, they have a brand style guide. Like, very few people do that, but they should. But most people don't think about the style of language that you use, and starting with the raw material being what your customers actually say elsewhere, maybe, and then crafting your language and style around that, I think is really critical, because otherwise there's this feeling that English is just English, and it's not true. You could be formal, you could be down with the kids, you could be anything in between, right? So I really like this, because I see this very rarely on Amazon. So that tells me this is an opportunity to be better, I think. I mean, what do you see when you look at sort of Amazon listings? I know you're mostly in slightly different space, but what would you say are the big mistakes that people are making in this space?
Don't get me wrong, I buy a lot of stuff off Amazon, right? So
of course, yeah.
I'm on Amazon a lot, and so for example, some of the best gold is also in those reviews. Not just because of the language patterns that are being used, but some of those testimonials are like stories within themselves. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Some of the best copywriters are guys and girls writing the reviews for you, and they tell this like amazing story of how they came to where they are. So putting some of those things into the listing, weaving those things in, can be really, really important. And then the other part is, like, I think just creating the picture in the person's mind. That is really key, because most of the products right on Amazon, it's like a commodity. It does this is a feature, this is a feature, this is a feature. And I know you referred it to before like old marketing tricks. I hate the word tricks. I think it's more of a, hey, these are foundational marketing principles that have stood the test of time.
Fair enough.
So based on those principles, if you look at what works, is the most important thing is, hey, here's the question we ask ourselves. First, before I buy any product, I need to run a successful test drive in my mind. Okay, so imagine when you go and buy a new car, right? You go and buy a new car, and before you've even started driving it, you've thought all the way on the way there the kind of car you want to get. And when you go and get that car, then you can sit in it and you go, does this feel like the test drive in my mind that I already had, of going, how am I going to feel, how am I going to look, how I'm going to act when I drive that car? It's the same thing with your product. So when people are going through your product listing, so on and so forth, are they doing that test drive in their mind of going, yeah, that's what I want. That's what it's going to fix for me, right? And then looking at all the different scenarios of what situations would occur. So I read some the other day. I think it was for what was it? I can't remember exactly what the product was for, but the way the copy was crafted all the way through, it was like, imagine you going on a date night, and it basically told this story of like, I think it was a surround sound system. That's what it was, right? And it took about 6 different situations based on like if you're having a date night, if you were having a like having the lads round kind of thing, if you wanted to do have the football on, whatever that was, and it kind of walked you through each one of those situations. So you've got your romantic date, and then it walked through, and then the next night you've got the lads round for the football, and then it showed the feature, but it also showed the benefit and then the dimensional benefit, and then walking yourself through that. Now, I'm going to go and buy a new surround sound system soon when we move house, and I'm going to be thinking about that one that I looked at. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that one, right? Because it's memorable rather than it just being generic like about the 20 others that I looked through at the same time. Because we browse a lot on Amazon, right? So we need to stand out from the rest.
Absolutely, yeah. I like that. And it's another NLP thing coming in there. I guess it's future pacing, isn't it? In other words, if somebody's thinking about something in the future and you bring that to the forefront of their mind and then take them further along that journey, then you're basically getting to imagine using the product, which is a classic thing. And by the way, when it talks to car sales, I used to have a friend of mine, he wasn't somebody to emulate in terms of ethics, I would say, but he used to sell used cars, and like a lot of used cars salesmen, he had ticked some of the cliche boxes, but my God, he was good at sales, and he did exactly this stuff. And it's in every single walk of life, these psychological principles turn up again and again. As you say, maybe they're principles, not tricks. My bad for saying that, but it's just like the pink elephant thing comes up a lot as an example. I always think nobody buys pink elephants, but I know what you mean. So couple of other things then. We've talked about where people are making mistakes with their copy. Where do you think businesses are losing the most money? And again, I suppose I'm sort of Amazon centered, but in e-commerce generally, where are the people messing this up?
Yeah, and if you're the kind of person who sells on Amazon but also wants to go and create your own product store as well, I think one of the key ways that I found was the customer service level. Right, and obviously the customer service level is a little bit different on Amazon because they're fulfilling the majority of that. However, customer wow, and what we said before about like putting postcards in there and stuff like that, not just kind of like discount off your order or things like that, or because we've got to be careful with compliance and so on and so forth. But just for example, having a system where you've got handwritten notes in there. Yes, it takes more time, but no one else does it. So would that get someone coming back over and over again? It'd be like, wow, this was originally packed by blah blah blah, right before it went to the fulfillment house. Originally packed with love by blah blah blah, handwritten. Those kind of things are it really take things to the next level. Another thing that we used to do on the e-com side of things, and we had a Shopify store, and a lot of people were selling the same product as us on Amazon. But they all used exactly the same pictures and everything. So the other thing, the way to stick out on that, right, is if you're doing anything like drop shipping or pulling the same product that someone else is selling, then make sure you get unique product pictures done so it looks different from everyone else's. Because otherwise they're just like, wait a minute, why is that one 15 and why is that one 10? They look exactly the same.
Absolutely. By the way, just a hint to anyone who's doing private labeling where you've got much bigger minimum order quantities, a lot of people are dumb enough to use the same pictures as everyone else or have a product that looks pretty much the same as everyone else. The worst case scenario is you pay the photographer a few $100 to get a product that looks exactly the same as everyone else. That's actually quite common, and that's kind of tragic. So yeah, unique product pictures, 100%. I just want to kind of, just to emphasize that even if you have a quotes different product, it's not enough to be somewhat different. Because when you're scrolling through Amazon, as you said, on your phone, everything looks very similar quite quickly, unless you really stand out, right? Absolutely right. So tell me a bit more about how you scale up this customer wow stuff. You mentioned handwritten notes. That sounds quite hard to scale. I can hear that people saying, "But Mike," so I'm kind of, pacing my audience here and thinking I know what's going on in their heads. I can't scale handwritten notes. So how do we deal with that problem?
Yeah. So here's the most important thing: is how much is a customer worth to you, and then if you added those extra touches, how much would a customer be worth to you then? So it's important to know the numbers, right? So if you can track things like repeat buyers, if you can track your lifetime customer value, and you go, okay, for it, so and we do this with our clients where we'll go, okay, great, we've implemented this thing. Now we know this many people got this thing because we've added a tag essentially to them. So imagine it like a shopping tag, right? You've added a tag on there to go, right, anyone in that box has had this thing. And then we track that lifetime customer value over a 30, 60, 90-day period to see if that customer's worth more or not. Now, think of it like this. If someone buys your product once, and they only buy once, right? Let's say it's something that people could buy more than once, or you've got other products in your product line or something like that. They buy your product once, and that's it. Now, you start adding some customer wow in there, and you go, people start buying on average twice. Now, that gives me another $30 each time, right? So now my lifetime customer value has gone up $30. How long does it take to write a handwritten note per order? Maybe, 1 minute max. Okay, so then you go, okay, how much does it cost for that person's wages per hour? Let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to work with easy numbers here. So let's say it's $60 an hour for someone to fulfill it.
Yeah.
Right, and it takes 1 minute. That means it's cost you $1. But if you've made an extra $30, is it worth doing the scalable thing and actually adding that customer wow? And is it worth maybe hiring someone just to write those handwritten notes?
Yeah. I like the thinking. The only barrier we've got here, if you're selling on Amazon primarily, and by the way, you were saying earlier, if you got somebody who sells on Amazon but is aspiring to have their own e-commerce store, I don't think I know anyone who sells on Amazon who doesn't aspire to have their own e-commerce store. Many of them have it, and it has like 1% of their revenue. But if you are going through Amazon, it's a bit tricky to track leads, isn't it? Have you got any sort of workarounds for that?
I haven't quite got the experience in the tracking on that side, right? Because we just haven't done it as much. I mean, we track it a lot with our client stuff, and we use tools like Segmetrics or Hyros or things like that. But what I will say is when we've done similar things from an e-com perspective on our own store, one of the key things that I added in is I set up a trigger that every time someone abandoned the cart, it sent me a notification to call that abandoned cart. Now, was that manual work? Yeah. It was a lot of manual work. Did I find out why my customers weren't buying? Yeah. Did I then turn them into sales? Yeah. So one of the key things that I did on that, right, it was so anyone who's like thinking about maybe having a second stream of income going on as well, so you've got traffic you can control, because hey, you might want to go and have that traffic you can control over there and then send them back to Amazon and then get more reviews on Amazon and then grow that product listing, and it gets up the organic rankings as well. So sometimes you can use a combination of the two. So one of the things there that we do on those abandoned cart phone calls, I just ring people up straight within 5 minutes of them abandoned cart, and I just ring them and I just be like, let's say it's Jenny. So we ring up and say, hi, is that Jenny? And she's like, yeah, who's this? Hi, it's Paul from Dream Many Secrets. Just wanted to check if something went wrong or something broke. I noticed you started ordering but didn't finish. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. And she's like, oh yeah, I was just wondering about blah, blah, blah. I was like, great. And then I'd answer her questions. Tell me a bit more about your wedding. And she's like, oh, why are you so friendly? Right? So we got in, started building a relationship, build a rapport. And then I say to her, listen, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate her. Just to say thank you, I'd love to give you a 10% discount. Now, unfortunately, it does expire in 24 hours, but I can give you that code right now, and we can just check that works. Does that work for you? And she's like, oh yeah, that's great. I was like, great. So if you just go to the site, and she's literally on the phone, and then I closed it on the phone. So then you turn those abandoned carts into sales, and I get to do customer research at the same time.
Be smart. What I really, really like about this is the following: that for the majority of Amazon sellers who have been around for a while, they've got a Shopify store and it does very little in revenue. But what I would say is it's an incredible under your control laboratory. And you just explained how it doesn't matter if that happens once a week, like over 50 weeks of the year that you're working or whatever you're working, or your staff. You got 50 research calls. Like if you one abandoned cart a week that answers the phone, right? And that would be amazing insight to then tweak the Amazon copy, because there are 3 or 4 key objections they've got in their mind that you haven't answered that you could answer in the copy. So I really like that, because it's scalable for people who haven't got them, and most of their sales coming through e-commerce store. And it strikes me more than ever that this is a great reason to have a Shopify store. Is nothing like what people think it is, which is alternative sales channel. I don't think it is for most people. It's a testing ground, exactly, and it's also a communication ground. So 2 sides of the same coin, right? You can't really test. I really like that a lot. I mean, it's going to take somebody a bit of courage to get up the get behind their computer screen and actually talk to real humans, which they may be out of practice at doing. But I swear anyone could do that, and it would be really good for them. I love that. I love that a lot. So I was about to ask you, if somebody wants a quick win, what's the fastest way to do that? That sounds like an amazing win to me. That's one to take home to the bank. What are other quick wins you got for our particularly sort of Amazon sellers who maybe have a Shopify store?
Yeah, so again, in that situation, this is just where I've got more experience, right? Is on building the store, and then you can direct people back to Amazon. So one of the ways is potentially running viral competitions, right? So if you want to contain your own list, grab your own list, so then you can send them back to Amazon and build those organic rankings and get more reviews and so on and so forth. Then find some traffic that you can control as well. So, for example, that would mean, like something that we've done in the past is we went and found some of the biggest industry players that had complementary products. And then we work with all those together, and we'd have it on the form where it'd say, please note that your information will be shared with the other people who are giving you the products, right? So people know exactly that they were signing up, and then the email will be shared between between the other companies that are involved. So we get like 10 companies involved. It costs us nothing in products. They would all promote as well, and then we could just bring this virality together, and then you'd end up with this massive competition where everyone wins out the back of it. Right, so like for example, in the wedding industry, it's like, well, we do bridesmaids dresses. Maybe we've got a wedding dress company. Maybe we've got an entertainment company. Shoes or things like that as well. Like wedding planning. Like you just start bringing all these things together, and then people are like, oh my god, I want to win that package, right? And so you just basically attracted an audience of your perfect audience that then you've got some traffic that you can control, and then you can send them back to Amazon. And you can also send them to Shopify as your testing ground, and then go and optimize those things, close off in the abandoned carts or whatnot. And then if you want to close the abandoned carts and close them on Amazon because you want to get higher in the rankings there organically, and make more sales there, then you can do. But you control that traffic.
Amazing. I like that a lot. So the wedding thing, it keeps coming up. So your business with wedding singer. So I've got a little note here from your bio, which I just got to bring up, one of the one pager you sent to get on the podcast, which says, I'm just going to quote it verbatim because I think it's really cool, and okay. I'd love to hear the answer. Tell us how you went from selling sausage rolls to being a wedding singer to selling bridesmaids dresses. That's got to be answered. Tell me all about that. It sounds like a fun story.
Yeah, so I was when I came out of school, I had the opportunity to go to university. I think you guys call it college. So I had the opportunity, and I was like, do you know what? I just want to go straight into work. So I started off working at Subway at £4.70 an hour, which works out about $6. It costs about £4.50 for the 2 hours of parking. So my first hour was free, and I worked like a 3-hour shift. So basically, I was making about £8 a day. And then after 3 months, I ended up getting a job at a very well-known bakery chain in the UK. It's got about 2,000 stores. I was selling sausage rolls and learnt about management, and I was running 20 staff at 20 years old. Like super stressful, but worth it. Because it taught me all the things I needed to understand about systematization, right? And building SOPs and things like that in order to grow and scale the business. So once I'd done all that, then I was like, do you know what? I really don't like working here anymore. And that wasn't because of them. It was because of me. I'd changed and moved on. And I was like, I want to do my own thing. So I'd learnt to sing a few years before. I'd been a drummer since I was like 11 years old. But then I realised you can only make about £60 a night from drumming unless you are exceptional, and I wasn't exceptional. So I was like, I'm going to learn how to sing. So I learned how to sing and became a wedding singer for 4 years, which then led to us creating a info product for brides-to-be, which was a physical info product, right? So it was like this Dream Wedding Secrets box, which was designed to attract more people to the singing. And it turned into another business because we asked our customers what they want. So we built a Facebook group off the back of selling that box. We got 3,000 people in our Facebook group, and then we just put a survey out. We just put a survey out that says, what do you want? Basically. Yep. And what do you want that you can't currently find when it comes to weddings? And the biggest thing was bridesmaids dresses at a reasonable price. So we went to AliExpress, found bridesmaids dresses at a reasonable price, and then we sold them for a decent markup. Made a lot of mistakes in that business, didn't understand my returns policy, ended up nearly going bankrupt, as you do. And then from there, like vowed to that. The problem with that business model, right? It was a group model, if you think about it. So if one bridesmaid doesn't like the dress out of 8, they send them all back. So great, you get to make group sales, but you also get group returns. So we were looking at a product that had a higher lifetime customer value, right? And then we started going, well, what else could we sell them? Like flower girl dresses, right? Shoes, anything like that. And then we'd start testing all these different products. But then I learned about marketing and stacking the value and all these kind of things, right? And copywriting and everything like that. And that's like we scaled that up to a bit over 100,000, which at the time seemed like so much money. But then I took those skills as we ended that business, and then went into more like the digital marketing side of things, and then helping other businesses. And then we realized, wow, you apply this to the online coaching space, and then it goes crazy.
Yeah, wow. So that's quite the journey. I mean, and by the way, I think quite a lot of people listening, if they're doing, the target audience is 6-7 figure Amazon sellers. Quite a lot of those transition into the coaching space sooner or later. So if you're listening thinking, you're talking about info products, that's not relevant to our life, it probably will be. Like, you're going to join the rest of us. Everyone does it. And even if you don't, there's an awful lot that can be learned from different business models and applied. And I think people get incredibly narrow about, they only copy, like Amazon sellers copy other Amazon sellers, Shopify sellers copy other Shopify sellers, and that's just incredibly narrow, isn't it? Because what you've done is transition through a bunch of stuff very organically. Yeah. I really like the fact that you asked people what they wanted and then you went and got it. It's kind of not hard to ask, although it's not easy to be in a position to have the rapport with enough people to ask, but to actually follow through on that is really cool. I mean, that's what an entrepreneur is, as opposed to somebody thinking about it. And the group returns, I can only imagine, like apparel in Amazon is infamous for return rates. So like in a wedding with multiple people, must have been horrendous.
Well, here's like, this is a massive lesson. So anyone who's listening to this, like if you haven't got your return process dialed in, like please listen to this, because it will save your future of your bank account. What I'd done, we had a 90-day returns policy, right? Because we were like, okay, as bridesmaids, we'll put a longer return policy in there because, they need to get everyone to try it on and so on and so forth. By doing that, what happened is we were tracking the returns based on the month that sale happened. So imagine you make $20,000 in that month, then you get, let's say, $5,000 back. Then you go, okay, I got 25% of my sales back. So you think, like, I know it's rough ideas, but like, let's say that's 25% return rate. Okay. In the apparel space, that's not crazy bad, to be fair, because it's typically about 40%. So we were looking at, that's great. However, so we thought our return rate was 12% because we were basing it on that month's sales because we were scaling up. Then we hit a point where I went through all the numbers and then realized, no, when we actually based it on the month that sale happened, based on the return rate, we were at 30%. So we were more than double the return rate. So what was happening, I spent more money to acquire customers, So we go up, and we were up, I think, about 16,000 a month. And then that month, then I had 25,000 come back. Right? So it all compounded together, and I say I had postmanitis, which was basically when the postman came to the door every day. You know, when they open the van and you hear the little beep, the little scanner? Yeah. Every time I heard it beep, it was like £250. Beep, £500. Beep, £750.
Wow.
And it was like, I had anxiety about the postman coming for about 6 months.
Yeah, that does not sound like a fun model. And I could see it's like a form of overtrading, isn't it? But a very specialist one, kind of in the sort of, with the returns not being foreseen. Yeah, I can see how you get into that, really. So what's the solution then? I guess that you have to have 90-day metrics. Well, what is the solution? Do you just have a shorter return policy now, or how did you solve?
Well, the way that we ended up solving it is we had to close the business down, because however, we couldn't switch off the ads, right? Because we had to cover some of the cash flow, so I had to basically reduce the ads down over the course of 4 month period, and try and start another business at the same time to fund the one that we were still paying out for. So it was a really, really crazy time. The solution to not letting that happen again is when you're tracking your numbers. This is why we are so obsessed with numbers in our business. Is when you're tracking your numbers, always track based on the same, like apples for apples, right? So if you're tracking a return rate, you track the month that those sales happened, and then the returns that came in for that month's sales. You track the next month and then to the next month. You don't track the sales for this month and the returns from 3 months ago, but just because they came back today, they count as this month. You don't do that, because that's what ends up putting you in a mess.
It sounds a bit like the difference between cash accounting and sort of
accrual.
Standard accounting. Yeah, accrual accounting, exactly, because basically you're relating the return to the sale as opposed to just kind of running it as it happens to turn up in real time, just week to week, month to month.
You can literally kill a business, and it killed our business because I didn't know that number.
Wow, interesting. Okay, well, there's a warning point. So if I don't know where to go with this, because you've got so much to say, but I know we've got to wrap it up fairly soon. What do you think, from a conversation, you've got an idea of roughly who our clients are now, are the biggest sort of wins that people could implement into their business today? If they're mostly focused on Amazon, but say they have or are considering getting their own direct-to-consumer site, there's somebody in that situation, they're selling their own brand products, let's assume. What are the biggest wins or things that you think they could implement to get the biggest return from?
Number one, talk to people. Actually find out what your customers want and give it to them, and give it to them in a way that you may already be giving them exactly what they want. They just don't know that you are giving them that thing. So use the language patterns that your customers are using in your copy. And then when we're talking about conversational commerce at the start, we're talking about embedded commands and things like that, right? That's a piece of it. The ultimate part of conversational copy is people like themselves. So converse in the way that people are speaking about themselves. So for example, if you go into a networking event or go in anywhere else and someone says something to you and you repeat that back to them, they will naturally like you. So, and if they're standing all tall and proud and stuff like that, and then you're standing tall and proud, then they were like, oh, this guy gets me, right? So it's the same thing. Mirroring is so important in the language patterns that your customer's using. So that's where I would start, is look at your Amazon reviews, look at your competitors' Amazon reviews, see what language patterns are being used, and see how you can put that in a conversational way to future pace the person's mind and get them to already test drive and have a successful test drive in the mind of your product.
I like that. Future pacing explained in a really nice sort of sales metaphor. I like that a lot. Future pacing by test drive in their mind. That's such an interesting insight. I love that, because I haven't really thought about the fact that when you shop, because sometimes it's so quick. I'm buying something on Amazon, I'm in a super hurry, like all entrepreneur types, kind of scan, yeah, whatever, click. And some part of my brain's gone, yeah, that'll be fine and that will fit here. And yeah, even if it's happening and I'm not conscious of it, I guess that the marketers are smart enough to know that it's happening and they've done all that hard work, so I don't have to as a consumer, which I think is a lot of the key, isn't it? Wow, interesting stuff. So if people want to work further with you, what stuff do you offer and how do people do that?
Yeah, so firstly, that in terms that phrase test driving your mind as well, I just want to credit Greg Atkins for that, because he taught me that, and like it's for he just sums it up perfectly. And then secondly, where can people find out more about us and what we do? You can go to www.amplify-C-com, no hyphens or anything like that, amplifyccom.com. So it's amplifyccom.com.
I bet you spend your entire life correcting people on that one. One day you'll be able to afford amplifyc.com or something, I guess. But
yeah, that got even more confusing. So
yes, well, that's true. Yeah. And what stuff do you do for people there? I mean, obviously you're very expert in the space, and I get your passion and your, school of hard knocks, as well as some real sort of structures you've got going there. So I love the approach. But what is it you do in concrete terms for people?
Yeah. So right now we help 7-figure plus course creators go and generate an extra 6 to 7 figures in new revenue in the business in 90 days, and without hiring a massive team internally or having to like outsource in that way. We basically handle everything for them and make them more money in their pocket.
Excellent. So there's no sort of direct e-commerce offering at the moment, but it sounds like you're thinking of potentially doing it. And you certainly got the e-commerce chops. You've got the scars.
Yeah,
which is what counts,
the
right?
chops and the scars. Yeah. So like in terms of, you may be listening to this just as it's released. You may be listening to it in a year's time. What I'd suggest is just go to amplifyccom.com, because there may be a point on there where we do go more into that space. We've already got clients that are very, very good in that space, and teach people how to sell on Amazon. Where we would be looking more about helping people going and scaling on Amazon more on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I would say that if you're one of the classic listeners of the podcast, and you are probably a 7-figure seller, and especially if you've just sold a business or you've scaled to a significant size, chances are sooner or later you're going to join the rest of us and create a podcast, maybe, and certainly create courses, in which case it's going to be directly relevant to you. Well, look, this is great stuff. I know you've got to jump off onto another meeting, so I just want to say big thank you for coming on the show. If you're listening live, I think I would have quite a lot of questions for Paul, or if you're listening on the replay, I should say, on one of our social channels, then do pepper Paul with some questions in the comments. And just remains for me to say, Paul, many, many thanks for coming on the show, and really great stuff. I really, really enjoyed today's show, the energy and the school of hard knocks that you brought to bear today.
Thanks very much, Michael. Appreciate it.
That's great. Right then, folks, well, if you're listening live, we're going to be non-live in a second, so do ask any questions you got on for Paul. And in the meantime, thanks very, very much for listening to the